Oh, it's live, pal.
Sorry.
We will ban you from the Summerfest.
Right here in the Silverdome.
Jeff Harvey.
And I have half the brain that you do.
This is the Wrestle Hunks Podcast, a podcast where three hunks get together and discuss some of the very worst things you can find on the WWE Network. As always, I'm joined by the hunkiest hunk, Brody Price.
Whizzle Wazzle.
And the IMDb of wrestling, Nathan Marlowe.
Please, sir, may I have another volley, sir?
That impression's still funny the second time around, as we had to record this intro twice. But yes, this is a show where we each week sit down and watch something that's pretty shitty that's available on the WWE Network in most cases. And this week we're reviewing the one and only single-branded WWE ECW PPV, December to Dismember. It was a tight race in the Twitter poll, but eventually December to Dismember came out on top, winning the poll, getting 46% of the vote, just ahead of SummerSlam 2010 on 30%, and the debut episode of Saturday Morning Slam on 24%. I was a bit disappointed to see Saturday Morning Slam didn't come through with a late run and steal the poll, but still a solid winner, December to Dismember.
Well, December to Dismember was my selection, so I think me and the followers are pretty much on the same wavelength. I think I'm the favourite out of the three of us already.
I think that goes without saying. You are the hunkiest hunk, and the fans respect that.
Must be a lot of girl followers. I would imagine.
I'm sure.
Want to give out any shout-outs there?
Shout out to Bella Bliss. I'm sure she's listening. She's your number one fan.
No comment.
Look forward to seeing her at World Series Wrestling.
Shit, I hope she's not listening actually at the moment.
I'm gonna DM this link to this episode when it comes out. Gonna DM it to her, and she's gonna listen to this, and then I'm gonna make you talk to her when we go to World Series of Wrestling.
Thanks, man. I just lost a follower. I appreciate it.
But back on the topic at hand, had either of you boys seen any of the December to Dismember pay-per-view prior to sitting down for this episode?
Many times.
Nathan's a connoisseur for bad wrestling. So
Many times. Have you'd actually seen this pay-per-view start to finish before?
Yeah, I've seen this a few times. I've watched it on the network multiple times. It's funny to watch. It's literally funny.
Is that the only reason you watch this, or?
Sometimes I like to sit down and watch a good wrestling match with Ariel and Callie Kelly.
Oh, that's an absolute wrestling clinic.
Let's not get into the spoilers yet, boys. That's probably a match of the night.
It's definitely a contender. It's probably in the top 5 or 6 matches that appear on this card.
Easily top 6. Easily.
What about you, Pricey? Had you seen any of December to Dismember?
At the time of it happening, I think the three of us were pretty young, so I don't really remember it from the time, and I've never gone back to watch it, probably with good reason. But it was very interesting to go back and watch. I was a big CM Punk fan, so to see him get squashed early in the match was fun.
I think the only time I ever watched any December to Dismember was probably wasn't that far after the pay-per-view happened, but remember back in the day when YouTube had a 10-minute time limit? You could basically find anything on there, but it was cut up into 50 parts.
Yeah,
10
big
minutes.
parts. Yeah.
That's how I watched December to Dismember. It's December to Dismember part 1 of 15. Because I remember watching Bobby Lashley break out of the pod, thinking that was the coolest shit ever.
That's iconic. That's very iconic.
It is. That needs to be
fans.
that needs to be in the little package they play before the show starts with all the iconic moments.
That'll get him over. Maybe he needs to do that again.
Yeah, they need to bring that back up. Instead of having him feud with Sami Zayn, just talk about him winning the Extreme Elimination Chamber.
I don't want to hear about his 3 sisters ever again.
I still can't believe they did that. That was that episode of Raw. Actually, we need to chuck that in a Twitter poll in future.
Jesus.
I think everyone wants to forget about that episode, actually. So
that and the Old Day segment are contenders for episodes of Raw for us to watch here.
Oh, for sure.
Bailey, this is your life.
Oh, definitely. There's been some terrible segments in the past year and a half.
So for the in-ring stuff, eh?
What did you guys know about December to Dismember before this?
Just that, I guess listening to all the wrestling critics these days at how bad it was, and like Bruce Pritchard's podcast about the WWE ECW run, that it was probably the worst pay-per-view of all time. That's why I put it up for this poll. But yeah, that's probably about it. I don't really remember much from it from the time.
Yeah, that's basically all I knew about it. Like, is the terrible reputation it had.
Yeah.
In the aftermath of it. So it's like, I was expecting, like, my mindset going into this was that it's going to be absolute like shit show. And I always kind of like expected it to not be a very good pay-per-view. I remember me and Nat would always like consider buying this on DVD, but we'd flip it over to the back and they're literally only advertising 2 matches. So we're like,
Yeah, it was never worth it for what the price was.
yeah, probably save the money and spend it on Survivor Series 2003 or
Great American Bash 2007.
Was that down to your local sanity? Is that where you bought it?
it was 100%. December to Dismember, that copy was at Sanity. It would never sell. It would just sit there. And we'd look at it like every Saturday. We're like, oh, maybe this is the week we buy it.
That's what puts
never
it out
a
of
week.
business, I think. Wasn't it?
Instead, I think I'll buy a Funaki figure, thanks.
2 of them, in fact.
Yep.
You can never have too many Funakis.
Oh, God. Just make them a tag team.
All right, so getting into the history, background, and build-up of this illustrious event, the December to Dismember pay-per-view was held on December 3, 2006, and on this day in history, Russia beat Argentina 3-2 in the 95th Davis Cup, and Logan Whitehurst also died, the drummer from Little Tin Frog. Boys, what's your favourite Little Tin Frog song?
I wasn't prepared for that question.
I love Freddo Frogs.
Rest in peace, Freddo Frog. He was a good drummer.
Also, I got a question.
Yeah.
Why is it so Christmas themed? It's December 3rd.
You got to get into the spirit, man.
Yeah, they really play up like the Christmas theme, which is like they held we're gonna get into it a little bit later, but they held an Armageddon pay-per-view like 2 weeks later. Like, if you really
Yeah.
want to go all out with the Christmas theming, surely you like switch those 2 pay-per-views and then like have December to Dismember right before Christmas.
We're not getting into Armageddon, but just off the top of my head, I'm guessing there's a Santa segment where he gets beat up, or it's Mick Foley or something. Is that?
Oh, 100%. Armageddon was infamous for those.
Yeah, you had.
Or was it Big Dick Johnson?
Ooh, was
Well,
that
he's
year
not back in the
where,
company.
where he gave the lap dance to the Miz?
No.
We can only hope.
I forget. We'll have to get to it.
I'm sure we will
That'll
get to
come
it
around.
one day. That's got some shitty moments on it, that pay-per-view, from memory. But this great event was held in the James Brown Arena in Augusta, Georgia. The attendance was put down as 4,800, which that's got to be one of the smallest attendances for the WWE since the turn of the millennium, don't you reckon?
Definitely for a pay-per-view. That seems like a very low amount.
Like, NXT run way bigger arenas than that, like, all the time. It's hard to imagine, like, a third, like, proper brand actually, like, performing in such a small arena. And when they had, like, the wide shots when the Elimination Chamber was coming down, you could really, like, get a feel for, like, this is this tiny-ass arena.
Yeah, and
Selling out those bingo holes.
yesterday, I mean, we're recording this the day after All In, and watching that yesterday compared to, and then I watched December to Dismember pretty much straight after it. Just the arenas and the crowd is kind of crazy that this is WWE, and that's an independent show that just had so many more people.
Yeah, like, even, like, thinking, like, All In was a 10,000-seat arena, and you think, oh, that's, like, kind of small for WWE, like, if you're talking WWE standards. But that's like, well and truly, like, double this arena, which is crazy to think about.
It is.
The buy rate for this pay-per-view was estimated to be around 90,000 buys, which is piss poor, you can probably tell. 55,000 of them coming from the United States. This was the lowest buy rate in WWE history. Technically, the WWE have since recorded lower buy rates, but these have come during the network era. so they don't really count because most people are using the network at this point. I don't understand why you would not have the network if you're gonna watch a pay-per-view now. I don't think I've bought a pay-per-view since like WrestleMania 29.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I haven't bought one since the network at all.
wrestling-wise, no, definitely not.
Yeah, since the network, it's just like, why would you pay so much? Especially pay-per-views here in Australia were ridiculously overpriced.
Not even Ring of Honor. Don't even pay for that one.
Let's stay clear of that.
So Survivor Series was held just 1 week prior to December to Dismember, which majorly impacted the promotion, build-up, and the eventual commercial success of the pay-per-view. Survivor Series did roughly 383,000 buys, which was pretty low compared to the other Big Four pay-per-views that year. Most of them did around like 500,000. So that was a lean period for the company in general. They also, as I mentioned earlier, Armageddon was held just 2 weeks later. And if you had have bought all 3 of these pay-per-views in that 1 month span, it would cost you $120. So it's a pretty steep price to pay. And if you're thinking like, one of these pay-per-views I'm going to have to miss out on, it's definitely going to be the ECW one where they've announced 2 matches.
I don't know how things worked in your household growing up with Leanne and Davo, but my mum was pretty stern with me only getting the Big Four pay-per-views per year, so I definitely wasn't going to get December to Dismember.
Well, we'd only get WrestleMania, and if we had the day off, sometimes Royal Rumble.
Yeah, it was basically the rules. Like at first, it was just WrestleMania, and then it kind of our parents loosened up, and it was more if we were home from school that day to watch it live, they would get it.
Yeah.
But usually that only was WrestleMania, sometimes the Royal Rumble if we're lucky.
And then one time we got New Year's Revolution.
Yeah, we'd get New Year's Revolution. That was like in the sweet spot for school holidays, which was...
And then randomly, one time we got bragging rights.
Did we?
Yeah, remember it was Kane versus The Undertaker?
What, did we order that?
Is that the Buried Alive match?
That's the Buried Alive one, yeah.
Yeah, we watched that. Pretty sure.
Oh, what an honour. That is a barn burner match between Dolph Ziggler and Daniel Bryan. Can't believe we watched that live.
You guys got the good pay-per-views then, right?
I know. I know the good shit.
So why do you think anybody in the WWE offices thought this was a good idea? Do you reckon, like, surely somebody spoke up about the poor timing of the event and, like, would have said, like, this isn't going to sell well. It's so close to these other pay-per-views.
I mean, it could have been the name. I think December to Dismember is a pretty cool name. Maybe that.
Yeah, it had a lot of potential.
Yeah, let's just throw it out there.
It's a cool name, but the main event is like, I don't know about you, Pricey or Nat, but like the thing that like drew me to like big events back in the day was like gimmick matches.
Yeah.
So like the Extreme Elimination Chamber is like right up my alley. They just don't follow through with anything else.
First match I ever saw was an Elimination Chamber match, so that would have sold me if I had money.
Why didn't they do Melina on a pole match?
That would have been a great stipulation.
Why didn't they just do like an evening gown mixed tag match? And Mike Knox and Kevin Thorne had to.
Honestly, if they like desperately needed to pad out time, they could have done like one of those like Divas segments that they would always do on a single brand pay-per-view. I'm surprised that they didn't do that at all.
Yeah. It's just really bad planning. Like, there's no way to correct it.
Yeah, it's just basically a shit show all around. But in the Survivor Series pay-per-view the week before, several ECW superstars featured in the main event, and this did not help the December to Dismember pay-per-view at all in terms of buy rates. Lashley, RVD, Sabu, Big Show, and Test all were featured in the 5-on-5 elimination match. The name for the December to Dismember pay-per-view was actually was taken from an original ECW pay-per-view event in 1995. Attendance for this pay-per-view was estimated to be about 1,000, which is actually not that much smaller than the 2006 effort, which is incredible considering what ECW was. December to Dismember 2006 is infamous for having just 2 matches announced prior to the event, and as we mentioned earlier, as we learnt browsing Sanity, even the DVD release only promotes these 2 matches on the cards. Could either of you even like name the other matches on the card before like? I know Nat had watched it a bunch, but like Pricey, could you name?
No, I even forgot some.
I don't think I could. No, I just remember from reading about it and hearing about it. It's just that the second match that was announced was a non-ECW match, which sounded strange.
Which that's ridiculous.
Well, I forgot about the whole Elijah Burke match.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that like any of those matches were on the card at all. I think I knew about the Striker Balls Mahoney match, but outside of that, I probably couldn't have named any other matches.
Your big Balls Mahoney, Mark. That's why.
Despite, as we just mentioned, despite being billed as a single-branded pay-per-view, it still needed to borrow superstars from other brands, which came in the form of one of their two prior announced matches. And what was supposed to be a 3-hour event clocked in at just 2 hours and 17 minutes officially. And I've got a little excerpt from Hardcore History, the extremely unauthorized story of ECW here. It says, McMahon was not worried, saying fans would be happy to see a new champion and a 10-minute celebration. He compared the timing to a one-round Mike Tyson fight that still left fans excited with what they had seen. Heyman was to cut what would prove to be his last in-ring promo before the main event, and he offered to fill time by delivering a 10-minute promo that he swore would be a verbal masterpiece. McMahon told him not to go over 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Jesus.
So yeah, you can tell just in the lead up to this pay-per-view, it's just a shit show. Clearly, Heyman and McMahon aren't seeing eye to eye at the moment, and McMahon's kind of just taking over Paul Heyman's baby and trying to make it into his own thing. Outside of the weekly ECW on Sci-Fi broadcast, the pay-per-view received little build-up on both Raw and SmackDown, as they were concentrating on the Survivor Series pay-per-view that had aired 1 week prior. At this time, this main storyline, Raw, was featuring DX and Rated RKO, and SmackDown were heavily featuring Batista and World Heavyweight Champion King Booker. And technically, the build-up for December to Dismember began in the middle of October, about 6 weeks before the event occurred. December to Dismember is also notable for being not only the single ECW brand exclusive pay-per-view, but it was also the last before the decision was made to have all three brands featured on future pay-per-views. Did you boys like the concept of single branded pay-per-views, both the ones held back in the mid-2000s and the ones that were just held recently?
The ones in the mid-2000s, I guess, like I said before, I was kind of young and I didn't get to watch them anyway, so it didn't really bother me back then. The ones recently, I could see the positives and negatives to either side of it. I think we're better off now having just the best from each brand on one show, and not have two pay-per-views a month and sort of dragging on a bit. But yeah, I'll probably lean towards the dual brand pay-per-view.
Well, as wrestling's evolved, we seem to not give a shit about the filler matches anymore. And that's what the single brand pay-per-views really. There's a lot of filler in them.
Yeah.
And that's why it really didn't work when they had single brand pay-per-views when they brought them back.
I think maybe if they did sort of took like the NXT TakeOver model and had the single brand pay-per-views and had it sort of 2 hours and a half, 2.5 hours maybe, that would
short and sweet.
So have like the main matches that have been shown on that brand and sort of stick to that. I think that could work, but other than that, probably.
Yeah, I like the idea of single branded pay-per-views, but especially at this time, they didn't have like enough of a roster to support those pay-per-views actually being fleshed out. So yeah, I agree that like a 2 hour, 2.5 hour show would have been way better in this time. But I think the ones that were held recently, they could have easily been like they've got a deep enough roster to fill out like good cards, and still somehow they mess that up.
Stunk it up.
I
saw someone tweeted about the SummerSlam, the SmackDown portion of SummerSlam recently. How AJ versus Samoa Joe, Bryan, Miz, Hardy, Nakamura, the women's title match, and then the New Day versus the Bludgeon Brothers. Like that's a pretty solid, like just a SmackDown pay-per-view if you had that. Yeah,
they've clearly got like enough there to fill out like a pay-per-view worth tuning into. I think the problem that they ran into, and they clearly ran into back in 2006, is that like they wanted to just like have a ton of pay-per-views instead of like sticking to the 1 per month format. I think if you stick to a 1 per month format, it gives you time to like properly build instead of like having to rush through everything. And I think they could have actually succeeded with single brand pay-per-views.
And more people will buy them when they're spaced out.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not as much of a concern now because of the network, but back then like pay-per-views were kind of pricey. So like you need to like space it out, especially when like one of your target demographics is kids.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Pricey. How much is the WWE Network?
$9.99. If you're are you out of your mind, Nat? Buy that right now. First month free, by the way.
Technically, with the exchange rate, it's about like $14 each month here.
Yeah, we get
$14.
That doesn't have the same ring, but
It fluctuates every month. I'm just hoping for the 1 month where it drops down to like maybe $11. Be a real bargain.
get it on a steal.
So the main event at December to Dismember, it featured the Extreme Elimination Chamber match. The whole pay-per-view was essentially built around this match for the ECW Championship. On the October 24, 2006 episode of ECW, RVD defeated the ECW World Champion Big Show for the second consecutive time. Per the stipulation for that match, if Van Dam were to defeat the Big Show again in a ladder match, he could then choose a time to face the Big Show for the ECW Championship. Van Dam chose to have his title shot at the December to Dismember pay-per-view. Paul Heyman authorised Van Dam's decision and added him to the Extreme Elimination Chamber contest for the ECW Championship along with Big Show and 4 other to-be-announced ECW superstars.
That sounds stupid.
Yeah, it's Heyman is like a heel in this though, so it kind of makes sense. Like he's going to give RVD his title shot, but then like screwing him over by putting him in the Elimination Chamber, so it kind of makes sense, but I also like really hate like the storyline that they're pushing here. I don't
It would have been so much better if this was the number 1 contenders Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, I don't know, like the whole pay-per-view, like the whole chamber is like built around like Paul Heyman like wanting to kill off old ECW, and it's like I don't know, it's such a weird thing to do with Paul Heyman. But
Yeah, well, the only old ECW superstar in it is RVD.
yeah, that's true. Sabu was announced, but then gets replaced, and I guess CM Punk's kind of like lumped in as like a ECW original for like this entire run, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, it is.
But the remaining 4 participants for the Extreme Elimination Chamber match were decided through standard singles matches. The first person to qualify was actually Sabu, who defeated Kevin Thorne on the October 31, 2006 episode of ECW. Kevin Thorne a bit stiff there to miss out on this Elimination Chamber match, I thought.
He got a good spot on the card at least.
He actually did. They got a decent run, which was mind-blowing.
Don't get me started on Kevin Thorne. Not yet.
The following week, CM Punk and Test qualified by defeating Mike Knox and Tommy Dreamer, respectively. Then the final place was to be given to Hug or Holly in a contract signing segment on the November 14, 2006 episode of ECW. As Holly was making his way to the ring, Bobby Lashley, a wrestler from the SmackDown brand, attacked Holly and signed his contract himself to gain the 6th and final place in the Extreme Elimination Chamber. I've got one question for you boys. How is Bobby Lashley supposed to be a babyface here?
Well, I was sort of watching his promo during the pay-per-view, and it sort of just reminded me of Roman Reigns today for some reason. I don't know why. Just the actual promo and fighting against the odds and all this sort of stuff. It just really reminded me of Roman Reigns, and I tried to figure out whether or not he was supposed to be a heel or babyface in this. I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Bobby Lashley just wanted competition.
Yeah, he did. His promos he cut really like weird. Always talking about like competition and stuff, and like talking about like one goal. It's so weird. But you're not crazy mentioning like the similarities to Roman Reigns. I'm going to mention it a little bit later. But the way that this whole like angle plays out is like scarily similar to Roman Reigns winning the Royal Rumble, which is like it's like mind blowing to like look at all the similarities that are there.
Ooh.
Although the 6 spots in the belt were filled, Heyman announced an Extreme Rules match between Van Dam and Holly on the November 21, 2006 episode of ECW. If Holly were to defeat Van Dam, he would take his place in the Extreme Elimination Chamber. Van Dam, however, won the match and cemented his place in the Extreme Elimination Chamber. Van Dam continued gaining momentum into the December to Dismember pay-per-view as he, along with team members Sabu, Bobby Lashley, John Cena, and Kane, defeated the team of Big Show, Test, Umaga, Finlay, and MVP in a 5-on-5 elimination tag match at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. On the final episode of ECW before December to Dismember, Van Dam defeated Sabu. Later in the show, CM Punk faced Test, but both men were counted out in the bout. And in the main event, Big Show was disqualified in his match against Lashley as Test and Heyman's security force, which were Doug and Danny Basham, assaulted Lashley. Did either of you know that Doug and Danny Basham were the security force?
No, what the hell?
I don't think so. I don't know if we're ever going to talk about the Bashams again, but I like to think of us, the three of us, with you two being brothers. I like to think of us as you guys being Doug and Danny Basham and me being JBL. Sort of like a
JBL.
cabinet.
Oh,
Like a
I
modern day
disagree. I see Brandon and I as the Gemini twins, and you're our Simon Dean.
That's the perfect.
I do
analogy.
subscribe to the Simon system, so I can.
Oh my god! Last night I watched Batista versus Simon Dean,
Is that
and
from? When is
it's
that
like
from?
a random SmackDown
Wow.
when he was the world champion, and he drinks the Simon system, and and then during the match he looks a bit tired and he cracks one out, and he pins Simon Dean. Absolute storytelling.
Simon Dean got a harsh run, in the WWE. I think he really could have gone far with that gimmick, run to the ring on his Segway.
Segway. Oh my god, that was amazing.
So the other main rivalry heading into December to Dismember, and I don't know if you can really call it a rivalry, but it's more than all the other matches, pretty much. It was between the Hardy Boys and Eminem, which was Joey Mercury, Johnny Nitro, and Melina, who for those who have forgotten about that iconic tag team. Unlike the Extreme Elimination Chamber rivalry, this one did not include any ECW superstars and only featured members of the Raw and SmackDown brands, which technically makes this pay-per-view non-exclusive to ECW, spanning all three brands, which is a little bit of a bizarre decision. Like, why do you think they had to throw in the Hardy Boys and Eminem? They have a lot of people on their roster that they don't utilize at all for this pay-per-view.
Care to rattle off some names?
Well, Sandman only comes out for a post-match beatdown.
Yeah.
I mean, Tommy Dreamer is used for a nothing match. Who else is in there? I mean, they toss Sabu out, and he does nothing for the pay-per-view. I just feel like they had people there to kind of put in place of the Hardy Boys and Eminem.
Where was Stevie Richards?
It's a good question.
That's a good question.
He actually asked for his release after this show.
He did, yeah.
But he wasn't on it. Was he on the pre-show?
Yes, he did have the dark match. Actually, I remember seeing that. He had a dark match with.
That's stupid.
Give me a second.
That'll put butts in seats.
I don't even know why you would have. They knew that this pay-per-view was gonna run short. Like, Heyman was talking to Vince about the pay-per-view running short. Like, surely you don't have a dark match. Surely you just throw it on the card at the very least.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Stevie Richards defeated Rene Dupree.
Oh, see, main event in any arena.
ECW original Rene Dupree.
Was Rene Dupree on ECW, or was he just
I have no idea.
Rene Dupree could have been anything, man. He had the look.
I didn't know he was around 2006. So
What's the one Grenier?
I feel like Rene Dupree, this would have been close to him being done with the company.
Yeah, you would imagine so.
just look at me.
Yeah, he was done in 2007 apparently. So, but back to the classic feud here between the Hardys and Eminem. The build-up to the match between them began when Nitro and Jeff Hardy started to feud over the Intercontinental Championship on Raw, which was actually a pretty good feud from memory. The two competed in several different types of matches, including a ladder match, and the Hardy Boys had just teamed up for the first time since 2002 when they defeated Tony Mamaluke and Little Guido. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm not even going to try.
Mariato.
But yes, they teamed up to beat the FBI on an episode of ECW. I'm so confused. Why are the Hardy Boys wrestling on ECW here?
Just a bit of a tune-up.
So this is like the reserves. Is that what you're saying? ECW.
Taking on LAX.
It's like ECW hasn't even been like back for that long, and they're already like, oh, let's just randomly have the Hardy Boys wrestle on ECW. Just, I'm so confused. Like, what did Vince want from this?
I guess try to get ratings. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's true. The Hardy Boys probably would have popped ratings a little bit then. At Survivor Series, the Hardy Boys, along with DX and CM Punk, defeated the team of Nitro, a Rated RKO, Mike Knox, and Gregory Helms. Gregory Helms, random addition there. In a traditional Survivor Series team elimination match.
Was the DX name for their team D-Generation Punk Boys?
I'd be disappointed if they weren't called.
That's how they used to have them in the old days. They used to name all the teams.
Have like a common name, yeah, between the
the Mega something.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to Mike Knox and Gregory Helms somehow getting featured in a 5-on-5 elimination match at Survivor Series.
It's pretty impressive for them.
Yeah. How did Gregory Helms get in there though?
I'm assuming he was feuding with Matt Hardy.
Matt Hardy, yeah.
Yeah, because Nitro's feuding with Jeff and Mike Knox is feuding with CM Punk. So,
yeah.
Still, Mike Knox is such a random addition. Like, that's got to be the highlight of his career in the WWE.
Remember that time I was on Survivor Series?
You were on... Oh, I was going to say, you were on Survivor Series, Pricey, and you never told me that.
I was, but that's a story for another day.
So the next day at the Dismember press conference, which is, again, and another random thing, the Hardy Boys announced an open challenge for the pay-per-view. Later that night on Raw, Nitro accepted the challenge and announced the return of Mercury and the one-night-only reformation of Eminem. On the following episode of ECW, Eminem attacked the Hardy Boys after they defeated Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay. Meanwhile, the Voodoo Kin Mafia, a tag team from the TNA promotion, issued a statement via the TNA website stating that they had accepted the Hardy Boys open challenge for December to Dismember. However, Voodoo Kin Mafia did not turn up at the event, and WWE never acknowledged their challenge. Do you guys remember the Voodoo Kin Mafia?
I've heard of them. Who are they?
The Voodoo Kin Mafia, I'm pretty sure it was Road Dogg and Billy Gunn.
Billy Gunn, yes. Yes, I remember that.
I remember watching their their vignettes, like they were trying to it was them. They were trying to do the invasion to the WWE, and they were so bad.
Wait, what does VKM stand for?
It's Voodoo Kin Mafia, obviously.
Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
That's like peak TNA shithouseness.
What would the plan have been to put that on their website? Like, people would have, if they were interested, which would have been shocking, they would have paid for the pay-per-view and then watched it.
Yep, free publicity.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, hey, we're gonna go watch our competition. Also, who's checking the TNA website in 2006 for all the juicy goss?
I don't know, I've ever checked the TNA website, so not me.
The TNA website is one of the saddest things in existence. I remember a few years ago, they still had their store running on there, and you could buy heaps of Sting gear and AJ Styles gear, and it was kind of pathetic.
Get a Christian Cage shirt.
I was like, fuck, Jesus. Get rid of this stuff. Get someone to run your website. So that's all for the build-up to the card. That means we're onto the actual event of itself. And looking at the match card, boys, the amount of dead people on this one is 2.
I'm surprised I actually went through with this. Is it Balls Mahoney that's the second?
Balls Mahoney did die in the past year.
Jeez. R.I.P., man.
And obviously, if you check Twitter, you'll find out that Test is in fact dead.
Are you sure about that?
I don't know because...
Do you have an account to follow for that, Brandon, by any chance?
I'll look it up here. I don't know what the exact thing is called. Is Test dead? At Is Test Still Dead? So follow that. Yeah, daily updates on Test's living status. They haven't tweeted for a while, which is actually really, really disappointing.
Might have got an operation. Maybe he's alive.
They're probably not too sure at the moment.
The last time it actually tweeted was 31st of December 2017, and then their account retweeted one, and then on April 2, which was April 1st for America, the account said, no, he is risen. But as to my knowledge, Test is very much dead at the time of this recording. So kicking the event off, the first thing I noticed is they couldn't even shell out for an actual pay-per-view theme here. They just use the regular ECW theme, which is kind of shitty.
I mean, they had to pay a lot for that theme, though.
Yeah, that's true. They usually don't use like popular songs for that long, so that actually is a good point. Also, I mentioned in my notes here, shout out to Carlos Cabrera and Hugo Savinovich on commentary.
Does one of them still do it?
It's Carlos Cabrera, I'm pretty sure, still does it. Hugo Savinovich is, he might be deceased, I don't know.
I hate when people say JR and King are the best commentary team.
Exactly.
Because that's so disrespectful to these Spanish legends.
Man,
I
they had a good run.
might start watching old pay-per-views in Spanish.
That's what our podcast should have been.
They always seem hype, so...
They do. When they introduce them, these like going nuts. Wow. I'm looking at his Wikipedia page here. Hugo Savinovich married Wendy Richter.
Jesus.
They got divorced, but
Oh, small world, though.
they pumped out 2 kids, though.
Well, they make
Oh,
a bit of-
jeez.
Respect to Hugo, the little pocket rocket.
Wendy Savinovich.
Oh, I hope those kids grow up and they make the big time.
One more body to fly! Oh, man. Only in ECW will you see this.
So, onto the first match here. The Hardy Boys defeated Eminem via pinfall in 22 minutes and 34 seconds. Dave Meltzer gave this 3.25 stars. And, I mean, this is the way you kick off a pay-per-view, especially a pay-per-view that's going to end up being such a nightmare like this one.
It was a pretty good match, I thought, from watching it. And I have in my notes that the card was so stacked that they needed to get 4 wrestlers from a different show to be on it, and to have probably the best match or second best match on the card. So, I mean, I think that pretty much sums up the rest of the card by having Raw and SmackDown represented just in this one.
Yeah, I'd almost argue that this is the best match on the card, and it's not even any ECW performers in it. And it's between, like, 2 tag teams that, like, aren't even tag teams at the moment, it makes it even weirder.
I just noticed as well, this has 2 future ECW World Champions in this match.
It does. It's actually a pretty star-studded match.
I guess they are ECW guys. They just didn't know it.
This is the beginning of something beautiful.
I'll be honest, this match goes for way too long and it's not that good. There's a lot of filler in this match.
That's what I had
you
in
can
mind.
see they are stretching for time. There are parts where they're just waiting for someone to be in a spot because they're just filling time. It's just a lot of that.
On a regular WWE pay-per-view, I reckon this goes at least 10 minutes shorter.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I basically summed it up in my notes here. Pretty good match, some innovative spots here and there, and it was a pretty good way to kick off a pay-per-view and get the crowd going. But it does drag on, but I guess they've been told, like, we have shit all on this card. You've got to go out there and stretch it as long as you can. I also wanted to make mention of Matt Hardy not being overweight here. It's so weird to see Matt Hardy, like, slim down.
Fat Hardy. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you said?
It's weird to see him not being Fat Hardy.
Yeah. It is. He looked good. He looked good here.
He did. Like, it's kind of embarrassing to see him nowadays. He's so sloppy in the ring.
Well, I think he relies more on his gimmick now, which I appreciate. But
I mean, it's a good gimmick, so I don't blame him for it.
yeah, exactly. Just rest on that.
Also, notice the crowd with the "She's a Crack Whore" chant. That was pretty classy of them. Classic ECW.
Yeah, they did that heaps.
Yeah, they really got stuck into Melina, like, hardcore.
I couldn't believe it. Taz and I shared the same opinions of Melina throughout the match.
I'd forgotten how annoying she was when she was at ringside. Like, she just doesn't stop screaming.
Yeah, the yelling was getting a little annoying.
Hey, that's what a heel does.
Get that heat, brother.
Exactly right. Don't.
Very effective. Also, shout out to Scott Armstrong in this match. He's looking real small. He's not jacked to the gills like he is these days, but shout out to Scotty Armstrong.
Everyone's favourite ref, I would imagine.
You mean Scott Legstrong?
Also, my final note about this was when they first showed the shots of the arena, I thought the ring apron and the entrance were like real low effort in design, and I couldn't figure out if it was like them trying to keep the spirit of original ECW and like have everything be kind of low budget, or if it was just Vince like not giving a shit about ECW.
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah, like I don't think Vince would be like deliberately like trying to make it look shitty, but I don't know, they could have done something more. The ring apron looked like it was the drizzling shits.
Yeah.
Is it like red? Is that what it was?
Pretty much. Like it wasn't even like, it didn't even look like it matched with like the official.
Yeah, it didn't really match.
And stuff.
Nah.
So I was like, yeah, it was kind of weird.
It was like a Christmassy theme, didn't it? Like the actual logo.
Yeah, the logo was real Christmassy, and even the entranceway was a little bit Christmassy as well. But yeah, then the apron was just like red, and it's like, oh, you guys did this at the last minute or what?
It's like they had a week to prepare for it or something.
Out of the people in this match, including Scott Armstrong, who do you think's had the best career since this night?
Oh, jeez. Well, it's definitely not Joey Mercury.
Oh,
What was your favourite SmackDown singles match you had before this?
I'm just saying, it's harder than you think, because I would feel like you'd immediately go to Jeff Hardy because of his world title runs. But then you've got, like, Nitro did pretty well for himself in the WWE, and he's doing pretty well outside. Matt hit it pretty big with the broken Matt gimmick. Yeah. And, like, at least Mercury had the J&J security.
That's what I was thinking of.
I'd say Jeff in WWE.
Yeah, Jeff definitely reached
And
the highest
I think Matt outside of WWE, just for the fact I haven't really heard that much of John Morrison. Like you hear about him every now and then, but
hey man, John Morrison was in the hit wrestling movie with a dog called WrestleMania, so put some respect on his name.
I hope we get a shout out for that movie every show. I'm sure you will try to get it in there.
I'm gonna try and shoehorn it in every single week.
Well, if I've actually got on my eBay right now an Elite 4 John Morrison figure. If anyone wants to buy that,
is it signed?
No, but apparently they go for a lot of money, so I put it up.
Isn't he coming to the show we're going to later this year? Is he
actually?
Yeah, pretty sure he's coming to WrestleFest.
Or was that the one we didn't go to?
No, I'm pretty sure he's coming again.
Either way, I mean, if he's coming, then we'll get him to sign a player.
If he's here, we might sneak into the meet and greet again illegally.
Get around us.
Real life heels.
Maybe
Kings of sneaky snow.
Maybe son of evil Brody Price's followers can get a photo up with him.
Like Bella Bliss.
I'll be there. So if people want to take a photo with me, please come up. Don't be shy.
We might have to set up our own Starcast the day before.
We'll be out in the parking lot.
That would be Striker's own mug, I believe. I'm not that I'm looking at his derriere, but I'm just a little concerned. What the hell is that? Striker's face?
You gotta wonder about a man who wants to sit on his own face, Taz.
I never thought of it that way, but all right.
I didn't until now either.
All right, so moving on to the next match on the card, and the first filler match. Balls Mahoney defeating Matt Striker via pinfall in a Strikers Rules match, which is not actually really a thing, but he claims it's a thing. This match was 7 minutes and 12 seconds long. I'd argue it was 7 minutes and 12 seconds too long, and Meltzer gave it half a star. What do you think of the match?
Matt Striker, that's the opening promo sort of reminded me a little bit of Drew Gulak from 205 Live.
Yeah, now that you mention that, it kind of does, yeah.
Sort of like the no-fly zone and all that sort of stuff. I appreciate that. I think, if we had more matches contested under Strikers rules, the world would be a better place.
He should have stuck to teaching. He sucks, like, here at least.
Yeah,
I think maybe later on he's alright, but
My first thing that I thought of when I was watching him wrestle was like, I'm so glad they turned him into a commentator because it looks weird in the ring. He doesn't look like a wrestler.
Yeah.
The fact that he had his face on his tights, on the arse of his tights.
That was so poorly added in. Like he had kind of cool tights, and then just his face slapped on there. Didn't work for me.
Yeah, not a fan.
But as you mentioned, Pricey, before the match, Striker does cut a promo. This is where he announces that it's a Striker's rules match. That basically means nothing. And you can really tell they're paying for time here. They basically have a promo before every match. They're clearly just scrambling for time. And I reckon if they didn't do all these promos before the matches, this pay-per-view goes for less than 2 hours.
I could have booked this better. You know. When I hear my idea for Strikers rules match,
Go for it.
This is what
I wanted. Just have big 1 meter rulers. Have instead of tables, just chalkboards. Why didn't they do something like that, like an actual extreme rules match? Because instead of 7 minutes, you might get maybe 12, 14
You could
out of an extreme rules. Because it's tables, the crowd won't be dead for it.
Yeah, I actually do like that idea. I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but that's a really good idea.
That is actually a pretty good idea, and it's something I did mention in my notes later. It's how did they not just throw in an Extreme Rules match randomly here?
We're gonna get to a really dog shit match.
This is supposed to be
really
an ECW
needed
pay-per-view, and there's not really anything, extreme about it apart from the main event.
Honestly, if they wanted to pad time and give people more bang for their buck, they should have just made all of the matches Extreme Rules matches. At least then it gives the fans something to get excited
That's what
about.
it was on ECW TV. Every match was ECW rules.
Yeah, and they just they kind of gave up on that, and then they come to this, and there's nothing. Even the extreme stuff is kind of not that big of a part of the Elimination Chamber match.
Yeah.
I've got an important note here. I don't know if you boys noticed it as well, but Matt Striker's dick is very distracting.
Is this some Zack Sabre Jr. kind of tights?
It was. I reckon it was worse at first. I was like, this dude is at half chub, and he was about to wrestle.
This is just Joey Ryan as a teacher.
I think we were all at half chub watching Balls Mahoney, weren't we?
Very good point. Balls Mahoney's he's a looker. I can see why he carked it.
Oh jeez! Oh wait. Moving on.
I apologise to Balls Mahoney. He was an ECW legend. Unfortunately, what wasn't legendary was his leapfrog during this match. You wouldn't even be able to slip a credit card under his feet there. That's how bad his leap was.
I could probably get up higher.
He barely gets off the ground. Striker has to basically crawl under him.
Crawl under, yeah.
All in all, actually, joking aside, I thought this wasn't a terrible match. It's definitely not pay-per-view quality, and you don't want to see this on a pay-per-view ever. And it's something you'd expect to see on Raw, but I didn't think it was an absolute stinker. I thought there was some redeeming qualities.
Yeah, this is more like a filler match for Raw than a filler match for a pay-per-view. This is it just shouldn't have been there.
But yeah, it's not awful. It's just something that shouldn't be on pay-per-view, and definitely not on this pay-per-view when they're badly needing something to really give it a shot in the arm. Somebody in the crowd even holds up a sign during the match that says "Cue the crickets," and it's that's just perfectly timed.
Yeah.
So after the match, after Balls Mahoney gets done beating Matt Striker, they cut to CM Punk shadowboxing, which is interrupted by a cameraman running to an unconscious Sabu surrounded by medical staff.
Fuck, who did it?
Yeah, it's a real mystery.
Rikishi, where is he?
I did a quick Google search. I wanted to find if they ever resolved who attacked him. I assume it's just Hardcore Holly, but I don't think they ever give a definitive answer.
Man, it's just who ran over T-Long or who pulled the briefcase on Austin.
I think that was Hardcore Holly.
Who was the anonymous general manager before him, Hornswoggle?
If you boys could book anyone to be the person that attacked Sabu, who would it be? I'd go with Big Daddy V.
That's a good question. Should have just made it someone who was going to debut, or just own up to it and say it was Hardcore Holly because he got attacked.
Honestly, it should have been anyone but Hardcore Holly. Like, that couldn't be any more underwhelming.
Yeah, it's true. Should have just had Undertaker in there.
Undertaker actually appeared on ECW in I think the first month or two that it came back. So that's
the
not far-fetched.
episode 4. He challenged Big Show.
Wow.
We have not only arrived, but like a wild animal in heat, we will leave our mark.
Imagine wild animals in heat too.
But on to the next match, the next filler match. It's Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay defeating the FBI, which is made up of Little Guido, insert
Say
last name
Nunzio.
here, Nunzio, and Tony Mamaluke. That's with Trinity via pinfall. This match goes 6 minutes and 41 seconds and is given 1.25 stars by Dave Meltzer. This match it's dreadfully boring, is basically how I would sum it up.
I want to know what Pricey's thoughts are on Trinity.
I'm glad you asked that. I actually have the same outfit that she wore on this in my wardrobe. I thought it was. I think I wear it better, but it was. I don't think you'd see that anytime soon on another WWE pay-per-view.
Before the match, Elijah Burke he cuts a promo, and it's just like another point to them padding for time. He also says here that Sylvester Terkay's nickname is the Man Bear, and I can't believe they're like saying that with a straight face. Like, what the fuck is that?
I mean,
You know what he looks like?
What?
Well, just think about it. It's the FBI versus Cassius Ohno
It does look like Cassius Ohno.
and Velveteen Dream when he did the boxing gimmick against Cassius.
okay, yeah, they teamed up in a past life. That's pretty cool.
They should book that for a future episode of NXT.
Watching this, like seeing Elijah Burke, it's kind of. I would much rather the Pope D'Angelo De Niro than this guy, to be honest.
Yeah, I love the Pope.
Yeah, Elijah Burke was like never really got off the ground with an actual character in WWE.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of has a character here, but like, what's his character once they go into the whole like new breed stuff? He's just a dude that tapes his fists.
Yeah.
He's a new dude. Is he the one that had 4 up on his?
4 up, boys.
He is.
Yep.
I remember that because of the action figure that we had.
I appreciate that from Elijah Burke.
I can't believe we had 2 Elijah Burke action figures.
We did. One from the
One with
Off the Ropes
pants,
series.
one with pants, and one without.
Well, you always want to have double, don't you?
Wait, and we own the Sylvester Terkay figure.
Yeah, but his ponytail fell off, so he
Wanted the wrist to run.
kind of-
He wasn't really the Man Bear. Wasn't the same.
Also, what's the go with Elijah Burke's comment about being like an animal in heat before the match? Like,
Yeah,
he's lost the plot.
yeah. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's not
Maybe
great.
He wasn't prepared for a promo.
It bums me out that Elijah Burke like never really put it together. Even in TNA, he never really puts it together. He has an okay run, but then they like just kind of fizzled out. And I'm pretty sure like he has a bad rap. Like, people say he's got a bad attitude. I think CM Punk even said he was one of the worst people he ever worked with.
Oh,
Jesus.
that's a lot coming from CM Punk.
Yeah, that's a lot. CM Punk hates a lot of people and says a lot of people are shitty workers. So when he's saying that, it carries some weight.
Hey, Ryback, how you doing?
I've got here, Tony Mamaluke looks like store brand Trent Beretta.
Tell us how you really feel about the FBI, mate.
Now that you mention that, he actually does. And,
But like,
Greg
Greg
wouldn't be appreciative.
he looks like if you had a Trent Beretta blow up balloon and then let like all of the air out, you'd get Tony Mamaluke.
So he's like
You're
the
such a
David Finley
dick.
Cassius Ohno that I made. That comment I made. Is that?
Why do you hate the FBI?
I just hate everything about the FBI. I hate.
Have you watched the original FBI with the whole group?
No, I haven't.
It's got Nunzio, Trinity, Mamaluke, but there's also Big Guido,
Yeah.
just an absolute big hoss who doesn't know how to wrestle. And they also have Big Vito.
Yeah, I like Vito.
Vito's cool. That's when they were good. But then now they're like at this stage, they're just a jobber tag team. So much to do.
Who did they have in like a couple years prior, like earlier 2000s, but in WWE? They had other people in it.
They had Vito, didn't they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that. Yeah, they had. It was Vito, Nunzio, Marmalade, Trinity.
And then Vito got the very progressive gimmick of being a man in a dress.
Perry Saturn Jr.
WWE's ahead of the times, man.
They really are. That was a progressive gimmick. Okay, they portrayed him as a babyface, so you know.
He'll never be in the Hall of Fame because he tried to sue for the concussions.
Oh wow, poor Vito.
I just looked this up. Chuck Palumbo and Johnny the Bull Stamboli were in it. Those are the two I'm thinking of.
Wow, that actually sounds like a not too bad FBI.
Yeah, I know about Stamboli. Didn't know about Palumbo.
I don't even know if Palumbo's Italian. Is that a thing? They just threw him in there, or
just has black hair?
Yeah, so he's in there.
It's like when people build up their current day Nation of Domination, just any random black person. It's just like, just give me a dude with black hair. He can be in the FBI.
Cozy. Nathan.
I hate everything about the FBI. You know that thing they do before they do like the is it like an elbow drop or something?
they do like a handshake.
Some stereotypical Italian thing. I hate it. It's the worst.
You gotta talk with your hands.
But I don't know about you boys, but I hated that match, and so did the crowd, because it changed the channel chant gets started during it. So I think they agreed with me.
Yeah, -2 stars.
Yeah.
I give it -3 little Guidos. But after the match, Sylvester Terkay hits a muscle buster on... I can't remember who he hits it on. I think it's on Nunzio, actually, which is kind of impressive. I wasn't expecting a muscle buster from him. And then after that, we see Sabu getting loaded in an ambulance. Apparently it took him like 10 minutes to load him in an ambulance, but he's done for the night.
The winner of this match, Daivari.
Talk about highway robbery out of nowhere. Gotta be kidding me. Daivari stealing this match from Dream.
Which leads into our next match, which is Daivari with the Great Khali, which I wasn't expecting at first when I saw Daivari come out. I was not expecting the Great Khali to come out at all. Defeating Tom Dreamer via pinfall in 7 minutes and 22 seconds, and Dave Meltzer gave this match a dud rating.
Why were they wrestling?
What was that?
Why were they wrestling?
What do you mean?
What was the story?
I don't think they had a story at all. Like, listening to the commentary, that I don't think there was any story at all. I think the story is just Daivari's with the Great Khali, and he's going to wrestle Tommy Dreamer now.
What was the story about most of this pay-per-view?
Well, we were supposed to dismember December.
At least the Mike Knox Kelly match later on has an actual story, which is...
it does. Further something, so that's good.
So technically they had 3 matches with build-up, which is pretty good. I think it's sad to see Tommy Dreamer reduced to this. Like, he must have been so hyped when ECW comes back, and then all of a sudden, like within like 6 months, he's losing to Daivari on pay-per-view in 7 minutes and 22 seconds.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I've ever seen anyone wear that Tommy Dreamer shirt, and he had it for years.
He did. He had it on the ECW action figure.
Yeah, he did.
It's an iconic look.
From memory, Tommy Dreamer was in the company before ECW got brought back, yeah?
Yeah, he came over in like 2002 or 3-ish, I think.
He left for a little bit, I'm pretty sure.
But he would have been loving this. Like, you know, he's probably not getting used if he was on Raw or SmackDown. And now ECW gets back, and now he's doing the job to Daivari. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, I couldn't imagine what he was thinking.
Yeah, it's this match actually. Like, I haven't agreed with some of Meltzer's ratings for the matches here, but this is a terrible match. Like, nothing about this is any good.
Yeah, it's not good at all.
At one point, the referee ejects Khali, which is like, when he did that, it gave me like the feeling of like, this is like your classic filler match on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Like everything about it just seems like, why? This is not a pay-per-view match. This is something you throw on superstars, maybe.
How does
but not
Daivari
pay-per-view.
win? He won without Khali.
Yeah.
Like
Dreamer goes for the DDT, and then he rolls him up, grabs the tights, and that's it. And then
So,
So sad.
are we power ranking them as managers? Daivari, Great Khali, and then Ranjan?
I think Ranjan is ahead of Daivari.
Yeah, easily.
I laughed out loud when I heard fucking Davari's music hit. Like, oh, this fucking idiot.
Was Muhammad Hassan? Did Muhammad Hassan use that?
It's literally just Muhammad Hassan's theme, and they're just like, whatever, give it to the other dude.
So he's gone from being an Arab to being Indian.
It's progress.
Really. He's not from here, man.
Same shit, different day.
But yeah, after Daivari gets the win, he runs off and Dreamer chases him, but he's grabbed by the Great Khali, who slams him with the, I don't know what he calls his big, like, two-handed choke slam, but he does that on the ramp.
There's a name for it. I forget what.
It's like the...
You know what he should have done, Brandon?
What?
He should have done his classic, you know how he did the claw on their head?
The vice grip?
The vice grip, and he makes them bleed.
Bleed out the mouth somehow.
Mouth. Yeah.
Should have done
I
that.
understood that.
That's an extreme move.
I actually thought that match being dog shit aside, him doing his finisher to Tommy Dreamer on the ramp is like arguably, in my opinion, the second best thing that's happened so far on this card. Right after the opening match, like I was actually kind of shocked. Like that's a pretty gnarly bump. I feel like the whole card should have been stuff like that. Like put them in those stipulations and have people, kind of not realize how shallow the card is.
Yeah, should have had him like a car crash kind of thing.
If this was an Extreme Rules match, and then Khali could have cost him the match like that, that would have made more sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like imagine if the finish, instead of like what happened, you have Khali doing that move for the finish, like through a table or some shit. Like,
yeah,
would have been
pretty much killed the crowd though, having Daivari win.
Yeah, like you gotta know your crowd. Surely Vince knows that having Tommy Dreamer of all people, like losing to Daivari, is not gonna go well.
Nothing says ECW quite like Daivari and the Great Khali.
Daivari, in my books, is an ECW original.
He's there for something.
Jesus.
But yeah, after Tommy Dreamer rolls around on the ramp for a little bit, we cut to Paul Heyman, who's shown backstage, going into the locker room of Hardcore Holly. And here he basically says Hardcore Holly is in the main event. And I've just got here, Sandman should have been in this main event. Like, how is Sandman not in the Elimination Chamber?
Yeah, it's bit dog shit.
Like, at this point of the pay-per-view, I was like, Sandman has got to be injured or something at this point, and then he eventually comes out to...
I guess Hardcore Holly had his gear on.
It's...
Sandman mustn't have passed the booze bus.
It's so frustrating.
What the hell is this? Well, All-American exhibitionist. It's kind of weird, right?
There's a lot of weird. There's a lot of weird going on. There's a lot of weird dynamic in that ring right now.
But we have to move on to the next match, which is Ariel and Kevin Thorne defeating Kelly Kelly. I was going to say Kevin Kelly almost then. It would have been a very different match.
That would have been interesting.
It probably would have been a better match.
It definitely could have been.
Kelly Kelly and Mike Knox in 7 minutes and 43 seconds. Meltzer gave this -1 star. This match is pretty dog shit.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, there's a common theme going between all these matches in the middle of the card.
It's just, it's not good between Mike Knox and Kevin Thorne, and then they tag in Ariel and Kelly Kelly, and Ariel is like, she's been wrestling for a little bit at this point, but she's not good in the ring at all.
She sucks.
And you're pairing her with Kelly Kelly, who's like, isn't she like 19, maybe 20 at this stage? Like, she's
Pretty sure
no experience at all.
Yeah.
And it's just a terrible match. Like, Kelly Kelly gets like watchable in the ring later on, but this is absolute dog shit.
Kelly's a dancer. And you know who taught her to dance?
I do.
Vince McMahon.
You gotta move. You gotta groove. You gotta move. You gotta groove.
Oh God, damn it! I forgot that you did that, but I appreciate that you've brought it back into my memory.
Can't believe I remembered that.
That's really good. Thank you.
Honestly, I wish Vince had given her advice on how to do everything else in the WWE, because she sucks in the ring, and then like even her like short promo where she wishes CM Punk good luck in the main event, even that's like kind of cringeworthy.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, Kelly Kelly's, she's still the GOAT to me. I don't care what anyone says.
Hey, so nice they named her twice.
Yeah, I love a bit of Barbie.
I just want to. Can I? I'm going to request it while we record. Can I have a segment each week where I talk about Kevin Thorne / Mordecai?
Of course.
Go right ahead.
I just think Mordecai should have got a bigger run, in WWE. Don't you guys? Like, I think that gimmick had a lot to offer, personally.
I think Kevin Thorne had a lot to offer.
Didn't he verse like Scotty Chihody?
I'm sure he did. That probably would have been a main event anywhere in the world.
For fuck's sake.
I mean, do we all enjoy Kevin Thorne's entrance song? Like that song is a banger.
It was a pretty good thing.
Vampires are over.
Yeah.
Kevin Thorne was kind of like the original Aleister Black.
Yeah, 100%. If Kevin Thorne came back into NXT right now, he'd be over.
Oh, of course he would. People would mark out for that. Put him in the Royal Rumble with Mr. Kennedy, MVP, and Carlito.
He's just a little bit late to be in the Brood.
Yeah, he missed the boat by about 5 years.
Unlucky. Gangrel.
I was confused. What team are like fans supposed to cheer for here? Like, are they supposed to cheer for Mike Knox because he has Kelly Kelly?
I mean, they cheer Mike Knox when he walks off.
The crowd could not give less of a shit about this match. The only thing that keeps them awake here is like every time Ariel leans over the ropes and they get a shot of her ass. That's the only thing that keeps them awake here.
Oh yeah, another thing I had to mention. I have that exact same outfit that Ariel was wearing in this match in my wardrobe. Even
with the tutu.
Yeah, I think they rated my wardrobe for this event.
That's so kinky.
What was the point of it even wearing the tutu? Like, it was barely even there. Like, to get rid of it at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. ECW was extreme, man.
Also, in the middle of this match, I had the thought. I don't know if you boys are Stranger Things fans, but
yeah, I've seen season 1.
This is going to go right over my head.
Well, I thought Mike Knox in this current gimmick looks exactly like the police chief in Stranger Things.
Hopper, yes, he does.
Yeah, that's his name. I couldn't think of his name, but yeah.
Yes,
I was like,
look like him.
I'm like, is Mike Knox in Stranger Things, or what's going on here?
Probably looks more like him when he got a bit older, like when he had the beard.
Yeah, but
good call.
I reckon there is a dead ringer.
I'm glad Nat knew about that because I would have fallen on its face. Otherwise, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Well, I think you can appreciate my next point, which is Mike Knox has the worst gear I've ever seen.
My expertise, yes, he has terrible gear.
And it didn't get better later on.
It's like it's like he got Randy Orton's shitty 04 tattoos put on his tights.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have thought of something better. I don't know, like Knox would have been better on the back.
They still didn't get better later on. He just had those black ones.
I'll give him credit. His look did get a lot better later on. Like the beard did wonders for him. It was a lot better than this dude. This just looks like a middle-aged man.
Didn't Nat? You'll know. Bruce Pritchard mentioned that Paul Heyman was big on Mike Knox.
Yep, he was huge on him.
Why?
He loved him.
Just the look of him, I guess.
Mike Awesome 2.0.
He's like
100%.
He's like the original Mason Ryan.
Oh, yeah, I thought it was Dave Bautista.
That's actually a good point.
No, seriously, he's exactly like Mike Awesome. That's the only reason.
What did you think of Ariel's finisher?
I've already forgotten what it was.
So
Should I go back and watch that?
She sets up, and I thought she was going to do a choke slam, and I'm like, Ariel is not going to be able to pick up Kelly Kelly at all.
Yeah.
But then instead she kind of just slams her to the mat without picking her up. It's like a rock bottom if you didn't lift them up.
Okay, yeah, I can sort of I can visualize what it is now. Yeah, I mean,
It's so bad. It's like the shitty little cherry on top of this fucking shit sundae that this match is. But if that's everything we have to say on this classic match, we'll move on here. Ariel actually beats down Kelly Kelly after the match, which prompts Sandman's music to hit. And here, Kevin Thorne just watches him make his way to the ring for a couple minutes. Why doesn't Kevin Thorne and Ariel just run away?
it's a pretty entertaining entrance, isn't it? Like, I would stay for that.
It is. Because he's a heel. I just don't understand this. Like, he's in the crowd. He's taken ages to get there. You know he's going to, like, cause some
Vampires don't back down from a fight.
But, like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, watching Sandman's entrance, there's not enough people getting colour from a beer can these days, don't you think?
I don't know if I've ever seen him make his entrance and not have colour from it. Like, I appreciate the commitment.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
It's kind of weird to watch.
But after that ends, the crowd goes nuts for Sandman because they've finally seen something that they actually give a shit about. Bobby Lashley is interviewed backstage by an announcer that I've never seen in my life before. But good on her for getting a job. And here they show what happened on the last episode of ECW, which is just more time padding here.
And right before I came out, I was standing in the back, and I realized to myself exactly what has been created. Exactly what, quite frankly, I created. Because I'll be honest.
Which leads us into the main event. That is Bobby Lashley defeating CM Punk, Hardcore Holly, Rob Van Dam, Test, and The Big Show via pinfall to win the ECW Championship in an Extreme Elimination Chamber match. This goes 24 minutes and 42 seconds. It's given 2.5 stars from Meltzer.
That's generous.
What do you think about the one and only Extreme Elimination Chamber?
Dog shit.
Not that extreme, to be honest.
The Hardys match nearly went longer than this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they rushed this Elimination Chamber. This has got to be close to, like, the shortest Elimination Chamber. Usually they go 30 minutes at least. And here they go 24 minutes on a pay-per-view where they desperately need to pad it out.
Who was the last entrant? Was it Big Show or Lashley that came in last?
Lashley.
Was it Lashley?
No. Wait.
Was it Big
No,
Show?
because RVD and Hardcore Holly started off. So RVD is the last one to enter the match.
No, but come into.
No, it was Lashley. I'm pretty sure. Doesn't he use the table to hit the pod because they lock him in?
Big Show is the last to enter the match.
Yeah.
Lashley comes in, well, tries to come in, and then he's locked in there by the Bashams, and he smashes his way out, and then Big Show comes in later.
Oh, okay.
By the time Big Show come in, there's no one left in the match.
Yeah,
They could have strung out.
The pacing is so weird here. I was just going to quickly say, Paul Heyman cuts a promo before this match, the one that we alluded to earlier, where it was told not to go over 2.5 minutes. But yeah, the pacing here makes zero sense. I actually think the first half of this match is booked kind of well. I don't know what you boys think, but I feel like there's actually a few decent spots between Hardcore Holly and RVD to start the match off. Like the Rolling Thunder to the outside is pretty cool.
Yeah, I have that written down. That was really cool.
They had some good matches. Even on that one where Hardcore Holly got the gash in his back.
Yeah,
one of the few things
they work well together.
Yeah.
They work well together.
But yeah, that starts well, and then the crowd is going nuts for CM Punk. CM Punk comes in, and him and RVD have good spots. RVD ends up wearing the Crimson Mask.
Yeah, some colour, brother. You got to get it hard way.
I feel a little uncomfortable watching these unprotected headshots with chairs after Benoit and knowing what we know now. I think up until CM Punk is eliminated in this match, I think it's actually decent. I think it's going strongly, and then they come to the Hardcore Holly elimination, which they botch, and I have no idea how they mess that up.
I'm not too sure, but it doesn't. I mean, it makes sense that the three probably best workers in this match had the best portion of this match, I guess, in ring.
Yeah, that's true.
Very true. But yeah, as for those who haven't seen December to Dismember, Test acts like he's going to hit RVD with the big boot. Instead, he hits Hardcore Holly with it, and then covers him. And then the ref kind of does a 2 count and then sort of refuses to do the 3 count, but then does it or something. It's very, very awkward to watch.
Yeah.
Then apparently he gets eliminated there, and commentary has no idea how to cover it up.
10-year-old me, by the way, was really hot at the fact that Punk got eliminated first. At all, really. I was a big fan, and I was kind of hoping he'd win, but yeah, I mean, how could
So was the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crowd were real hot for CM Punk. Like, I didn't remember him being so over this soon in ECW.
I mean, Nat, Paul Heyman had an idea for this match as well, didn't he? Do you remember what his...
Well, sir, may I please have a volley, sir? CM Punk defeats everyone with the Anaconda Vice. And then, lastly, the Big Show taps out. CM Punk, new ECW champion.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's
Thank you, sir.
That's all I wanted from this podcast.
That would have been much better booking of this match. Eliminating RVD and Punk so early is so dumb. And Vince booked the exact same thing when Roman won the Royal Rumble. I don't know if either of you noticed this. When Roman won, and Big Show and Kane dumped out like Dolph Ziggler and like a couple of other like fan favorites.
Yeah.
So like Roman and Big Show and Kane were the only ones left. With the thinking by Vince being that no one's going to cheer for Big Show and Kane, so they'll have to cheer for Roman, and instead they just shit on the whole match. I feel like the crowd here, though, like, they don't really shit on the match.
They're just bored. They're just tired of this shit.
They're probably happy for something other than like a 7-minute nothing match.
Yeah, that's true. There might be a bit of that going on, but even like when Lashley wins, they pop pretty hard.
Probably because the show's over.
Yeah, they can go home.
They're finally free.
That was me too.
Yeah, I was pretty happy to send it as well.
I'm gonna bit of a hot take here. I reckon, out of context, I think this is a decent Elimination Chamber match. It's nothing special, but if you don't know all the like surrounding thing about Punk and like ECW, if you just watched it isolated, you showed it to a kid right now, I feel like they'd think it was pretty decent because it's got a lot of cool spots in it.
Just off the top of the pod with the elbow.
That's a crazy spot for a
cool.
jacked up dude. You don't expect to be doing that.
I didn't expect us to do that one. That was pretty cool.
He should have been the ECW World Champion, but what would I know?
Test number 1 fan.
Well, he could have been at the Royal Rumble when he faced Bobby Lashley, but they didn't strap the rockets to him.
It's an absolute disgrace. You got roided up for nothing.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I actually noted down here, Test's body disgusts me.
Yeah,
It's pretty bad.
How's that HGH gut on him?
I saw some photos of him before, like early 2000s, and the difference between then and this pay-per-view is just disgusting.
Early 2000s Test, I reckon that's a main event look that he has, like with the long pants. And then like this is just like disgusting.
Peak Test is SmackDown versus SmackDown. Here Comes the Pain Test.
I think actually Peak Test is the WWF Jack's King of the Ring figurine. That's Peak Test.
That's the best figure I ever owned.
And then you broke it.
I broke it, and it goes for $150 on eBay. If anyone wants to buy it for me as a gift, just drop me a DM on Twitter.
We've all been there. I broke the real scale WrestleMania 19 ring, so...
If I was Nat, I would have kicked you out of the house.
That was my present as well.
We didn't know what we had until it was gone.
I know.
You're just stupid kids back then, aren't you?
And I just smashing that shit up. I remember I was a big fan of Sting, and I had a Sting WCW figure. I remember one day I was playing out in the backyard, and I just threw him at the shed, and just shattered. Why did I do that? That was my favourite thing.
You're thinking of Wolfpack Sting or Joker Sting.
It was Wolfpack Sting. And I don't know why I destroyed it, but I did.
Man, you're never getting that one back.
Definitely. How many people were buying WCW figures of Wolfpack Sting in Australia? Like, I could have been the only one. So what are our overall thoughts on the coronation of Bobby Lashley here, the Extreme Elimination Chamber match?
If this was now, everyone would completely shit on that, like sort of like Roman Reigns, like how we said before. But I guess in 2006, people weren't really smarky or anything like that. So, like you said, they did kind of pop for it. But yeah, it's pretty average, I would have thought.
What's the legalities on Bobby Lashley winning the title, being on SmackDown?
I have no idea. I feel like somewhere in the commentary on this, it gets brought up, and Joey Styles says he has an open contract or something.
Oh, shut up.
Which is like...
Shut up, Joey.
They're just making it up as they go along.
Yeah, just say you're traded or something. Make it up.
Yeah, like...
Traded for Charlie Haas.
Yeah.
So that does it for the entire match card. I'm about to ask this question, but I think I know what everybody's answer will be. What is the match of the night here?
The tag match was pretty clearly the best match.
Yeah, I agree. Ariel and Kevin Thorne. Were you talking about the same match or
storytelling, brother?
No, I agree. The Hardy Boys match by far.
Yeah, it's a solid match, and it kind of reminded me that Eminem were a pretty solid tag team, actually. Like, they could go in the ring.
Yeah, for sure. Two
Yeah,
pretty good
well,
workers.
Joey Mercury shouldn't have gotten away with the ladder.
They could have had another run.
Hey, fuck Matt for not being safe there.
Oh, hot take. Joey Mercury's run in J&J is better than Eminem.
Ooh, that's a main event run, man.
And Matt's an unsafe worker. It's just a fact. You ask Bret Hart right now, he'll tell you.
Oh, Bret Hart thinks everyone's fucking unsafe. If Bret Hart's listening to this right now, I'll fight him one-on-one.
He's a piece of shit.
I hate Bret
You're not afraid to fight a victim of a stroke.
Don't say it like that.
Jeez, Jim Neidhart just passed away.
Oh, hey, nothing against the Anvil.
Hey, to be fair, Bret Hart is undefeated in street fights in the past 10 years.
I don't want a street fight. I was going to fight him under Breaker's rules.
All right, so we unanimously agree that the Hardy Boys and Eminem was the match of the night, but what is the worst match of the night?
All of the above. I don't know how you pick a worse one. I like the mixed tag. I like seeing Kelly. That's probably nothing to do with the actual match, but I don't know. Probably the Daivari Tommy Dreamer one. That kind of pissed me off a little.
I think... Oh, sorry, you go now.
It's a toss-up between watching Sylvester Terkay on his own or probably just seeing Ariel and Kelly. I'm going to say that one, actually.
Yeah, I probably agree. I think the mixed tag is probably the worst match on the card, although Daivari and Tommy Dreamer is a bit of a stinker as well. I think...
Yeah, it is.
I think the Balls Mahoney Matt Striker match has redeeming qualities, and maybe even a couple of redeeming qualities in Burke and Terkay versus the FBI. But yeah, those other two matches, it's just like there's no redeeming qualities.
That Daivari match is definitely one that if you're watching it.
I think you got cut out there now.
Did I? Where was it? The Daivari match. If you're watching that late at night, you're definitely falling asleep during that match.
Really? You don't reckon it makes the best of Daivari DVD?
Probably might give that one a miss. But
I'm surprised you didn't buy that.
It would be perfect for people who suffer from insomnia, and if you're into ASMR for before you sleep.
Well, you know what they say, of all the Daivaris that have ever been in the WWE, he's the worst.
Oh, 100%.
Who's the other one? Is Sean Daivari?
Arya Daivari.
Arya Daivari. I
What?
think
Come on,
Sean
man. Watch
Daivari's
205 Live.
Show some damn respect.
205 Live.
Oh god.
Well, that does us for the actual card on December to Dismember, which means it's time for us to get into the aftermath of this legendary event. Less than 24 hours after the pay-per-view, WWE announced on their official website that Vince McMahon had sent Paul Heyman home, citing slumping television ratings and a disgruntled talent roster as causes for Mr. Heyman's dismissal. Heyman and McMahon clashed on the plane to the North Charleston Coliseum, and after a producers' meeting, Heyman was escorted from the Coliseum and sent home. He was also immediately pulled from ECW's creative team after the altercation. McMahon was attempting to put the blame on Heyman for the poorly received pay-per-view, and after a meeting with Vince and Stephanie McMahon, Heyman legitimately left World Wrestling Entertainment, although he remained under contract. Allegedly, that night, Vince said to Heyman, "Get this through your thick fucking head. My focus is on Bobby Lashley and only Bobby Lashley. That man is the brand's icon, the brand's superhero. He is ECW and he will be at the expense of Rob Van Dam, CM Punk, Test, and everyone else. And you can hit the door if you don't like it."
Yeah, he definitely didn't say that. Let's be real.
That was actually, it was reported in the book I mentioned earlier, the ECW book about their history. And honestly, I could see him saying that.
I don't. He loved Test.
Is it because he was his son-in-law for a little bit?
Mate, he's jacked to the gills. He's going NXT.
I don't know. I could see it being a quote. I couldn't. The only source for it is that book, so who knows? It could be fake. But honestly, take that quote, replace Bobby Lashley's name with Roman Reigns, and the other names mentioned with some of the more current talent, and it's
Just put it with the Shield members and Braun Strowman.
Yeah, replace Rob Van Dam with like Seth and Test with like Ambrose, and then Punk with Punk probably. that makes sense.
It's just weirdly accurate. It's scary to see.
Yeah, it brings back bad memories about Roman Reigns, doesn't it? Watching all this stuff.
But the reason Heyman was clashing with Vince here was because he was against the decision of Bobby Lashley being booked to win the ECW Championship, and instead he wanted to have CM Punk win it, as Nat brought up earlier in his flawless Paul Heyman impression. This decision was heavily disliked by Vince McMahon, and this situation was actually cited by CM Punk in his legendary pipe bomb promo in 2011, in which he referred to the idea as one in which Heyman saw something in Punk that nobody else wanted to admit. From Hardcore History again, Heyman reported to McMahon after the show with ideas on where to go from here, but a glowing McMahon wanted to know what Heyman had thought of the event. Heyman, whose lack of diplomacy had caused him problems more than once during his career, replied that the show sucked and that it did real harm to ECW as a viable pay-per-view product. However, Heyman said he had some ideas on how to repair the damage. McMahon did not want to hear them. Instead, he furiously grilled Heyman, asking why he was so negative about the grand coronation that had just occurred. Heyman told McMahon there was nothing to like. Fans had seen their ECW heroes, Van Dam and Punk, beaten without anything to redeem them, and the show ran half an hour short. McMahon told Heyman that the long-time ECW head did not understand what ECW had become, and he repeated words he said to many others that night, that December to Dismember had been an excellent show with an excellent finish.
Jesus.
How on earth is it possible for Vince to, at the same time, be one of the smartest men in the history of the business, while also being so dumb and tone deaf?
I mean, it is kind of weird. Like, surely he watched that show and thought, most of this is trash. Like, even if he thought like the Bobby Lashley thing was good, the rest of it was terrible.
And he contradicts himself. You see that when he sends Heyman home, he's allegedly trying to pin the poor reception of the pay-per-view on Paul Heyman. Yet in the hours following the pay-per-view, he's talking about how it was so well booked and that it was an excellent show and an excellent finish, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's just, Vince confuses me. He repeats this exact same story with Roman Reigns at the 2015 Royal Rumble. It's like he just doesn't learn.
I think the ECW could have worked even with some of Vince's ideas. They just, I don't know, this pay-per-view, you could have just thrown everything at the wall. Extreme Rules matches, like we said, having Sandman actually on the show, it could have been a really good pay-per-view and had it sort of like ECW style, but they missed the ball completely.
I think it just boils down to like Vince not really wanting an ECW style show. I think he probably just wanted a third brand, and then the ECW name was a convenient thing to attach on.
People might watch if it says ECW.
Yeah, if you're pushing out ECW originals and you show that Paul Heyman's there, you might hook them in, and then eventually you can convert them to be fans of the typical WWE product.
It was because of that the WWE ECW that DVD they made.
Yeah,
Really
that's
good
why.
puzzle, didn't it?
Yeah, most bought DVD at that stage.
really, the most bought DVD.
Yep.
Jeez, John Cena, My Life wasn't doing gangbusters.
WWE Live in
God.
Italy.
I mean, I don't know if anyone actually owns that besides me.
What about the WWE Divas in the Desert? Surely that was selling.
Can't wait to buy that which is on eBay for like $2.20.
10-year-old me would have bought that for sure.
I used to enjoy the commercials for it before other pay-per-view DVDs I had.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Price of your version would be a bit sticky in between the DVD covers.
the listeners don't want to hear about that.
Giving it the old five-knuckle shuffle, eh?
Jeez.
Hey, if the kids are listening, that's just John Cena's signature move.
It is, yeah. There's nothing.
He's got a new finisher.
Oh god, here we go.
Did you see his punch on Elias?
Punch.
Did you guys not see it?
No, I didn't.
Remember how I told you he was trying to come up with a new finisher?
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out it's just like the Hadouken punch that Kenny Omega does.
Wow.
It's like that.
Does it have a name?
I don't know.
He could have at least like spent time like saying he was training with Cheeseburger. He learnt the Shote palm strike.
Oh my god.
I would have been okay with that.
Well, continuing on with the fallout here of December to Dismember, the Big Show was allegedly on Paul Heyman's side of this argument. In hardcore history, it was reported that the Big Show was reluctant to lose to Lashley, and they wrote his complaint was that he was going to leave soon and he wanted to put over Punk on the way out, and this was his only chance. He also mentioned that Sabu's forced exit bothered him, and it was said that Sabu was reportedly as distraught about it as fans would be. In an early 2008 interview with The Sun, Heyman gave more details on how he would have booked the Extreme Elimination Chamber main event, which included having Punk enter first and quickly eliminating Big Show via submission. According to the interview, McMahon nixed the idea, but Big Show liked the direction Heyman was heading and was eager for the opportunity to make a star like Punk. He also stated that he kept going to McMahon on the night of the pay-per-view to say that the people are going to throw this back in our face. What do you think about the proposed finish of, or the proposed booking of Heyman's ideal Elimination Chamber match?
I love it, sir.
I like the idea of that sort of finish every now and again. I think it happened in was it a chamber match with Edge where he lost the title pretty straight away? He was the first one eliminated. And then
Edge. I remember the pay-per-view talking about Edge is the first person eliminated. I think before anyone else even comes in.
Yeah, which was really cool. I like that idea. So then, like the rest of the match, there's definitely a new champion, and I don't know, it makes it sort of more intriguing. I like that idea, and it would have been cool to see Punk go over Big Show.
But it would also ruin the Big Show.
Yeah, for sure.
But as the Big Show mentioned, he was planning on leaving the company soon anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
But then, I don't know, does it have it there? Heyman wanted Punk to beat everyone by submission. That just ruins Rob Van Dam, who was a WWE champion. That ruins Test.
Yeah, but fuck Test.
Whoa.
You gonna say that?
Hey guys, I've got a wacky Test fact for you. Every championship reign he had went for 13 days.
Lucky 13, as they say.
There was 5 runs, so put that one down in your diaries.
Oh, you know what? Watching Test try to wrestle gives me the runs.
You're a dog.
One more slander about Test on the show, please.
Rest in peace, Test. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
But I think that I did, at least starting the match off like that, I think it's pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of the way that they booked Goldberg and Lesnar kind of more MMA style, like this match can end at any time. I feel like having Punk come out there in the first few seconds and just tap him out quick would be pretty cool.
Puts Punk over. I would have been okay with it. 10-year-old me, he would have been.
Yeah, I would have definitely been okay with that. I'm pretty sure, isn't Punk's elimination here? This is his first loss, isn't it?
It would make sense that it would be.
Which is a pretty shitty way for him to go out there. Like he was clearly, based on the crowd reaction, he was real hot at this time.
Yeah. I only remember like three things from ECW in 2006, and that's Bob Holly when he cut his back open, like we mentioned earlier.
Iconic.
Kelly's naked dances, and CM Punk's promo when he first came in. That's pretty much all I remember apart from this pay-per-view.
That's all you really need to remember. Those are probably the only highlights
of ECW in 2006. Absolutely. I would have thought
so. As Nat mentioned a little earlier, Tommy Dreamer and Stevie Richards were upset at how the event turned out, and both of them asked after the show to be released from their contracts. Both requests were refused by Vince McMahon and WWE's Vice President of Talent Relations, John Laurinaitis, which is kind of a dick move. Like, they don't even really use Tommy Dreamer after this, and they definitely don't use Stevie Richards, so why not just let him go from the contract?
How would that have sounded, Nathan, if John Laurinaitis let them go?
Well, boss wants you here, but I can't do a good John Laurinaitis on the spot.
I hadn't heard it. I just thought I'd test.
I need some prep for that.
Yeah, we'll get some reps in.
You've done plenty of great impressions so far, so I'll give you.
Your arms look great, boss.
There we go.
Did you put extra oil on them?
Well, in the 2006 Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards, this event was voted the worst major wrestling show of the year, and I feel like you can't really argue with that too much. It was pretty bad, and I don't know if I've ever seen a worse event than December to Dismember. Not long after, Big Show was offered a long-term contract extension by the WWE, reported to be around $1 million a year. He declined the offer, however, reasoning he was burned out and hurting physically. On the first episode of ECW to air after December to Dismember, Show and Lashley would compete in a rematch for the ECW Championship. The Big Show lost, thus ending their storyline feud, and he announced his retirement from wrestling, although he did make his return in 2008 at No Way Out with Floyd Money Mayweather. After the feud with Big Show ended, Lashley entered a short program with Rob Van Dam, which led to Van Dam earning a title match on the January 2, 2007 episode of ECW. The match between the two ended in a no contest after Test interfered during the bout. Test interference led to a storyline with Bobby Lashley, leading to a title match at the Royal Rumble, which Lashley ended up winning. Were you boys disappointed that Test never won that?
Nathan was.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't you just give it a Test? I don't see why Lashley needed the title, since after that, he went into that program with Trump.
That is true. He didn't need the title for Mania, did he?
You actually make a good point there. I was initially just dismissing you as being a stupid Test mark, but that's a really good point.
That's literally why people say he should have won it, because he didn't need it. Maybe Test could have won it like a little bit more down the line, but WrestleMania, it's Umaga versus Lashley, no title on the line.
Zero focus on the belt or ECW in general in that, yeah.
And then the next pay-per-view is it Backlash or the last night, one night stand where he loses it to Mr. McMahon. And then ECW is really ruined then.
Yeah, I feel like, dropping the title at Royal Rumble actually would have been good, whether it's to Test or someone else. They could have, even if whoever won the title was featured in that, the New Breed versus the Originals match, like at least there would be some focus on their champion.
Well, why not have Test interfere and, I don't know, RVD wins the title because of Test interference?
Yeah, at least something. I actually agree. Yeah, Bobby Lashley having the title at WrestleMania 23 is really dumb.
Oh well, I don't book this shit.
That's the problem, Nathan.
But the aftermath of the ECW brand in general would see it eventually evolve into a developmental brand, and essentially it was kind of a precursor to what NXT is these days. And in the end, it wasn't actually the worst thing in the world. It helped guys like Zack Ryder Ty Dillinger actually appeared as Gavin Spears on ECW, which that name was never going to get over, but it still gave him a shot on WWTV. Evan Bourne, Tyson Kidd, Natalya, Kofi Kingston, and Sheamus all got their starts there. What did you boys think of the original version of the WWE ECW brand, and what did you think of it compared to the later developmental style?
Well, I think WWE have nailed the developmental now, but at the time, we were all kids at the time, and watching Zack Ryder and Evan Bourne, Kofi Kingston as well. I was into it. I didn't really. I was just watching wrestling because wrestling was on at the time, so I didn't have a problem with it at that time.
Well, I'll be honest. We're not going to watch a worse pay-per-view. Maybe there's worse shows and stuff, but pay-per-view wise, that might be the worst we'll ever watch.
It's hard to argue that there's going to be a worse pay-per-view, and really, this pay-per-view right here kills off that ECW, and it eventually morphs into the new talent initiative style ECW, which I feel like is kind of a blessing in disguise. I don't know if the way the ECW was originally, initially in 2006, was going to last very long. So I don't know. I kind of like that it evolved into a developmental brand.
Well, let's just see when we get to WCW 2000s pay-per-views. See how much maybe you guys will actually appreciate this pay-per-view.
Look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was better than Hogwild.
Jeez. That's a big call. Might have to hold you to that.
When we eventually get around to reviewing Hogwild again.
Not like we already did it.
Yeah, no, we definitely didn't already review that. And
no one
fuck
did
it up. Craig, the producer, shut the bed.
Fucking Craig, man. He's a fucking idiot.
So, final thoughts on the pay-per-view before we go.
Kelly. That is all.
I think this is going to be my last time ever watching it. I don't want to watch it again.
I don't blame you.
Like, I have watched it a few times, and I just, for some reason, before I watch it, I just forget how dog shit it is in the middle.
Yeah, it just drags forever in the middle.
If you don't watch if you only watch the first and last match, it's not that bad.
Yeah, that's the way I'm watching it. And then I get to Matt Striker. Oh, jeez.
Matt Striker and his big old hog.
You're in for a long 2 hours, 14 minutes.
All I have to say in summing up my thoughts on the pay-per-view is if I ever see Tony Mamaluke or Nunzio on the street, I'll beat the shit out of them.
Oh, you dog.
Do you reckon you could beat Tony Mamaluke in a fight?
I could run rings around Tony Mamaluke in a wrestling ring.
couldn't
you take that back.
I'll never take anything I say about the FBI back. Vito was their best member.
Trinity, if you want, you can message Pricey on Twitter.
Please
His DM's open.
Yeah, always open.
Well, I think that just about does us for this episode. Thanks for listening into the debut episode of the Wrestle Hunks Podcast. You can find the show on Twitter at Wrestle Hunks Pod. I'm on Twitter as at Source Marlowe. Pricey, you're on Twitter as
at Evil Brody Price.
And Nat, you're on Twitter as
at Nath Marlowe.
You can also find the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, and all those gimmicks that support podcasts. Feel free to rate us on iTunes. Give us a 5-star rating. Just be like Meltzer and hand out those 5-star ratings.
Yeah. Pretend this podcast was in the Tokyo Dome.
Don't be like Nat and giving out negative stars.
Oh, jeez, that's harsh. This show is only negative stuff. So let's be real.
Hey, the first match was good.
If you say so.
So this is the part of the podcast where we throw up suggestions for the Twitter poll that will go up during the week that will decide what the next event is that we'll be covering off. So do you boys have any suggestions right now off the top of your head for next week's episode?
I do.
keeping up with the theme with Test, I've got King of the Ring 2002, where we see Brock Lesnar versus Test to see who is the King of the Ring.
That's a
good choice.
That's
main event on any arena, but it went on third, so that's how the show's going.
Hey, in my book, that's semi-main.
And everyone's book is semi-main. I thought Great Balls of Fire, but just because of the name, the card isn't, and the wrestling is probably not going to be that bad. So I've decided to go the first episode of Legends House on the WWE Network. Really do a deep dive into some of the original content that
That is a great choice. I appreciate you picking that.
We all want to watch Mean Gene, don't we?
I think I'm gonna go with something from WCW, something in late WCW. Why don't I go Spring Stampede 2000? I have no idea about this event at all, but it's the first pay-per-view from WCW in 2000. I'm sure it's dog shit. So
should we chuck in a fourth one?
If you want, do you want a team effort suggest one?
Yeah, this is a good idea. On the fly, on the fliz.
So what are we thinking?
Give me 2 seconds.
We've got a WCW pay-per-view, a WWE pay-per-view.
And a reality show.
Should we go for an episode of one of the shows?
I think that's actually a good choice.
Would we like to watch the Big Show versus Undertaker main event
on ECW?
Yep.
That's
episode 6.
I'm happy with that. Also see on the Google Doc we have here of ideas the Strip Poker ECW episode.
Actually, let's go to the Strip Poker episode.
Is that on the network?
Yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, if it is, we'll throw that into the poll.
Yeah, we'll chuck that in.
Fourth option, Strip Poker ECW episode.
We'll chuck that in.
Very good choice.
So those are our options. They'll be in the Twitter poll. That'll be up on the Twitter page at some stage, I'm sure. But I think that just about does it all for us. That's it this week. Stay hunky.